Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Great American Film Off. I'm here with my pal Krosby. Krosby, how are you doing?
Oh, Dylan, it's good to see your face.
It's always good to see yours as well. Thank you. I love your little floral Hawaiian-y, island-y.
I try my best.
It goes well with the hair, and it goes well with what's going on outside, which is it looks like a tropical storm out my window. But it is not. I'm not on the coast, but it feels like one. It's just very windy and loud and rainy. But I guess it sometimes segues us right into our show, I guess, because we are here to have a pretty determined battle ourselves, a thunderous battle, if you will.
We're gonna pull out our forces and face off, you know?
That's right. Pull out our horses, maybe from America, maybe from Britain, maybe from somewhere else in the world, because we are talking to world leaders this week, inspired by the 4th of July, and we didn't want to make it so confined to presidents. We decided to do a show about world leaders in general. And how the show works is we will set a topic, we will break down into a rubric 5 points, and we will debate our points. We'll each pick a film, and then whoever wins each rubric point, the first of 3, wins the film off. And I believe the last film off for movie musicals, Singing in the Rain, I took it away with it. It was very close, but I did win my battle. So
a deserved win.
Thank you. Against West Side Story. I don't know if you can hear the thunder. If not, I can hear it. But
it's angry about West Side
Story. The thunder
Story stuff.
agrees. See, I think it agrees with Singing in the Rain. But if you want to look at it that way, Krosby. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I won the last one, so Krosby will have his first pick for this subject. But before we get into the movies themselves, Krosby, why don't you just break down what our rubric was for this very fun 4th of July topic?
Right. So as always, we have our 5 rubric points. This specifically is what is the best movie about a world leader.
Yeah, and that can be any country, king, queen, president.
Exactly. Anybody. You know, we're generous. We'll let it count. So number 1 rubric point, very important, the performance of said leader. You know, almost all these movies have a somewhat, lovely and confined name that sort of describes the character in question. So how is that titular character's performance? It's very important. We've got 2, historical accuracy, which we hope for, but we cannot always achieve. Number 3, real-world impact, which is important, as these are all world leaders who did something worthy of making a movie about them. So.
Yeah, and we're not necessarily looking at the impact of the world leader itself, but the movie and how well it reflects the impact that that person had. And, if it's a good representation, like some movies are meant to kind of take down a leader, make a leader look bad, and some are meant to make him look good. So it's really just on how that translates with the whole world impact.
100%. The Mantlepiece Award, which is, what kind of award buzz was there about this film? Oh my God, Dylan's showing us his Oscar. Dylan is showing us the Oscar he won for La La Land.
For my theater project junior production of Seussical in August 2013. That is what that's for.
That's amazing. 2013 was a wild year for the Oscars, so congratulations to you.
It was, yeah.
So this is pretty self-explanatory. This is how many awards did it win, basically, or what was the buzz that surrounded it? And then, of course, to close off, as we always do, the Netflix
constant
Chex Mix scale.
Of course. Yeah. How rewatchable is it? Can we sit down and watch this over and over, or is it a 3-hour slog like some of these are? And we, of course, at the end, will talk about your choices as to what you guys said on the poll, and then we will tease next week's show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Krosby, you lost the last one, unfortunately, but West Side Story, you gave a good effort. But why don't you tell us what your pick for the best movie about a world leader is?
So thank you, Dylan. I had to do a bit of thinking, because this is a broad category spread over so many cultures, with so many traditions of filmmaking. I looked at a couple of pictures, but eventually I really had to go back to the one that initially popped into my head because I just couldn't find anything else that topped it. I'm going to be going with Gandhi.
Nice.
1982's Gandhi, starring Ben Kingsley.
Very
it
good
is
choice.
Just one of those movies where you finish it and you know a lot more about the world than you did when you started. And I think that can't really be overemphasized for this category. But I just had to give it to Ben, and I had to give it to the excellent script and the fullness of the story, the wonderful supporting roles. How about you, Dill? What film did you end up scrounging up? Or Did I just...
You did not take my pick.
Lasso your film away.
You did not take my pick. It was on my list of like movies I was toying around with, but I will get to when we talk about the Mantlepiece Award because I have some reasons why I didn't pick Gandhi that are specific to exactly that category.
Okay.
But I went with something much newer because a lot of biopics that are a little older. Sometimes, they're more epic. They're harder to sit through just for time reasons and stuff. But one that came out a few years ago, I just immediately loved because it didn't really tell the whole life story of one individual, but rather a very specific point in their lives. I wanted to take it a seas to Britain, take it all the way to the lovely castle of, I don't know what century, I have to look it up, but I went with the lovely Queen Anne, and I went with The Favorite by Yorgos Lanthimos, starring Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone. We'll talk about it when we get to historical accuracy, but it's very much more focused on the actual romance and love triangle of these three women at the time, but it is about a world leader. Queen Anne was a world leader. It counts. She's a real world leader. It's not even like a stretch. So that is what I'll be fighting. Olivia Colman versus Ben Kingsley, which is something I'd love to see in real life.
That's a juicy wrestling match right there.
Have you seen it? You've seen The Favorite?
Yes, I have. Okay. Excellent.
And I've seen Gandhi, and it is also excellent. So this will be a fun film off. It's always good to make sure we've seen these movies because,
yes, it never hurts.
Right. Were there, before we move on, were there any you were toying around with also? Or was this kind of your pick from the get-go?
I thought the first movie that popped in my head was Gandhi because it's just one of my all-time favorite world leader films. There were ones that danced through my head. Braveheart has some excellent scope. It's a beautiful movie, but to me it's not as important as Gandhi. The Iron Lady is an incredible performance. I actually have a bit of a soft spot in my heart for the Liam Neeson film Michael Collins, where he plays a revolutionary leader of Ireland. There are a lot of really incredible ones out there, but end of the day, I had to go with the big G. Well, how about you? Did you have some others that you were toying around with?
I was toying around with Gandhi. My backup was The King's Speech. I really like that movie.
I love The King's Speech.
It's aged not as well as some of the other movies of that time, but I still think it's a very good movie. It's just, I think Best Picture winner does kind of degrade it a little bit because there were other good movies it was up against, like Social Network, Inception.
True. That was a good year, though.
Yeah, I also toyed around with a few president movies, of course, JFK and Jackie, which is not about JFK himself, but about his wife. But I did shy away from it because it's not about the world leader himself, but rather his wife. But I do think it's a beautiful film with Natalie Portman. But anyway, let's get into these performances. Olivia Colman, Ben Kingsley, the performance of these said leaders. Krosby, why don't you take us away first with Ben Kingsley?
Wow. Okay, so to me, there are really three things that make this performance so incredible. Let me just preface this by saying I don't know if there is another performance in film that is as hard for these reasons. The number one reason is that it is a real person. And this applies to all the people we're talking about. But when you're playing a real person, particularly if you're playing a real person from a time when photography and film were a thing that existed, then there is a certain pressure on you to behave in the way that that individual behaved from the recordings we can see of them. So that, I think, is the first hurdle, which he just clears.
Opposed to, like, Lincoln, where, like, we don't have any evidence except for written scriptures, so he could really kind of invent the persona and the voice.
Exactly. Not to say that it's not difficult, but I will say I think it makes it easier for the actor to say, well, I will just do this much filling in myself. The second thing is that it involves a dialect which changes. It is so hard to do a good dialect, but it is so much harder to start a dialect in a certain place and then play it through to the end. He starts as a lawyer who has a very strong British accent, and he sounds like a part of the establishment, because that is what we as an audience goer assume when we hear someone with a very proper British accent. By the end of the film, he has a very thick Indian brogue, and it is truly remarkable because you can still hear some of the same vowel sounds, and you can tell that it is the same human being, but you are able to see through this deep change in one of the most basic traits about a human, the deep kind of change that Gandhi himself goes on throughout the course of the film. Last thing is that journey that he takes throughout the course of the film. It is so difficult to play a character who we see go from a young man to a very old man. And I think that it really can't be understated how, with so many roles, it just, in order to really tell the story effectively, they focus on a very specific incident. 13 days, right? It is about JFK. More specifically, it's about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
And it frames it in a way where it makes the story easier to tell. But the great thing about Gandhi is it's just like, no, we're just going to do it all.
Yeah.
And from the very beginning, there's actually a wonderful little chunk of opening text that basically infers, here's the thing. Mahatma Gandhi had a life that spanned so long. He made so many incredible decisions and so many changes to the governments of the world. We couldn't tell that whole story if we tried. 3 hours is not enough. But they say that right at the start. So going into it, you're going to see a journey, but the convincing aspect of that journey really blows me away every time, even this time when I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of our best actors, period. I mean, everything he does turns to gold. Honestly, it's going to be hard to argue against it. But, I mean, Olivia Colman, she was someone who was well-known, but I feel like now she's more of a superstar because she has The Queen, or The Crown. The Crown.
No, totally.
She's got other movies now. The Father,
Broadchurch.
Broadchurch, up her belt now. But The Favorite was really what kind of brought her in the limelight. And in a movie where you have Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone, who are both very, very famous actresses, and she's able to come in here and steal the show from both of them and just stand out as the standout of this film. I remember early talks during Oscars, we'll get into it a little bit later, but she was talked to be up for maybe supporting, but then as soon as people started seeing the movie, they're like, no, we got to get her in for lead, and they're like, she's not going to win lead because she's just not a well-known name, and she did, and I think it's because her performance is just so good. And it's interesting because Gandhi, it's like it's a span of so much time, so you have so much different areas to navigate, whereas this one's a very specific period of time. It's her dying, it's her falling in love or lust. You don't even know if it's love or lust, and it's really honing in on the most vulnerable part of Queen Anne's life, and that kind of trickery and the backstabbingness and the friendships and exactly. So I think it's a much harder job to portray the more sensitive, hurting Queen Anne than the regal Queen Anne, because anyone can be the regal king or queen. You see Jonathan Groff do it in Hamilton, comes out and just all he has to do is just do this, and everyone just falls in love with him. But it's like it's like you have to really hit those vulnerable moments, and that's what she does so well. And then those moments where she is more regal, she does get to lash out. It's just so much fun watching her just kind of like berate all these little servants in her castle, just like, don't look at me, look away from me, like just screaming at them. And it's so just captivating to watch. And like I said, with this ensemble, to be able to stand out in an ensemble this strong, it is a really good testament to her performance, especially as someone who is lesser known, and now to be a superstar because of this movie. And Yorgos Lanthimos, his performances in his past two movies are very kind of subtle, very one note. They're layered, but not like they're not too showy. So to have a movie about a period piece with a queen who is very, very personality crazy, she has so many different personalities. To be able to still kind of capture that stillness and bleakness that his other movies have also encompassed is really nice.
Impressive.
So, I just think she shows so much in just such a little period of time, but it's hard to go up against Ben Kingsley because it is such a span of time that he's covering. And this was, I don't think this was the role that made him a breakout star, but this was the role he was most remembered for, especially at the time before like Schindler's List and all those movies came out.
And it brought him, it brought him to the world stage in a real way.
I think every actor has that role they're born to play, and I think Ben Kingsley, it's absolutely Gandhi, whereas Olivia Colman, it might be this, but I feel like there might be something else down the line for her. Even the Crown, it could be said as her role that she's been born to play. So I wouldn't be opposed to giving it to Ben Kingsley here, only because it's also had more time to kind of stand the test of time and still be such a powerful and emotional and amazing performance. But what do you think?
I personally, I have to give it to Ben because it just that range of time going from this, witnessing his journey, number one, fighting against the injustice of the world at that time. But then the second half of the film, is really more, in my opinion, about Gandhi discovering what it is he wants for the world to be. Because you fight really, it's kind of like the first, second act of Hamilton in a way. You know, you fight really hard to change the world, and then you're the one who's in the position of power or authority or influence. And you start to realize that your actions have a real impact in a deep way. And I think that between those two elements, I have to give it to them.
Yep. So Krosby, you're getting the first point there. 1-0. Krosby, you're in the lead. It's time to make up some points, and I don't know if I'll do it here. Historical accuracy, which I'll start for first and foremost. Yorgos Lanthimos has outright said some of the things in the film, I have his quote here, some of the things in the film are accurate, but a lot aren't. And I think that's because this is a movie diving into sexuality and different relationships that are not documented because it was not allowed. It was not accepted. Totally. And a lot of the movie plays into this whole idea that one of the characters, Sarah, is blackmailing Queen Anne with these letters, these intimate letters of like lust and sex and stuff that she literally holds over her head, because if it gets out, that's her whole monarchy is it's just ruined because of this. And I think that already allows for a lot of interpretation. So that side of the coin is obviously not historically accurate, but I'd argue that it's even more honest because these are universal themes that can be seen through time, like love and lust and rivalry and vengeance and violence and sabotage. That's stuff that's always been around. So even though it's not word for word what it was back then, I think those themes are so universal that they're able to capture the best idea of what that would have been back then. But again, it's hard because there is no documented evidence. Yeah.
True. Well, and also the thing that's tough about The Favorite is, like you're saying, there isn't all that evidence. There isn't all that stuff that we have on Gandhi, where we have the incredible time cover of him spinning at his loom. We don't, as much as he is a figure who is very distant in history, I would argue Mahatma Gandhi still looms as this enormous part of what a society should be.
Right.
In the same way that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Was that kind of a figure. And I think it is really important that the movie starts off by basically saying we couldn't tell every story. We'd love to, but we can't because this guy was too important. And right from the beginning, that is a nice little storytelling aspect where you're, as an audience member, you're like, oh, okay, I got to get ready because this guy was the shit, And I think that on the one hand, because from doing the research, it is not 1,000,000,000% historically accurate, but the film of Gandhi, I think, does a really impressive job of marrying the real dates and times and the dates of these revolutions and the salt, strikes and things like that, marrying them with this really excellent evocation of Mahatma Gandhi's life.
Yeah.
In this way where he is present at almost every event, of importance that seems to take place during this time period. It's something that reminds me almost vaguely of Trial of the Chicago 7, where a film that came out this year, where it is built around a real life event, but due to the excellence of the evocation from the script and the performances, you are carried along on this deep journey and story that really should be more personal, but becomes enormous and thematic in nature.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, as much as I think your story has a lot more to cover, so you're obviously going to have to take liberties. Yours, at least, is for the most part accurate. Like it is, what is Gandhi's life? This is a very good way to teach people about Gandhi's life, and if not every beat for beat, at least the aura and what he meant to people.
Right, and he was a lawyer in South Africa, and then he moved here, and then he moved, So.
Whereas this film is an interpretation of what we didn't see, so it's very hard to get this point, but. I do think it does go to Gandhi, so I'm now battling 2-0.
Well, you're an honest man, Dill.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to win historical accuracy. I mean, it's not like when we did gangster films and we could be like, well, no, this is how the gangs really were, even though these events are fiction. Like, this is completely nonfiction, but the crux of the film is fictionalized, or at least interpreted from what people believed of what the scholars have said about maybe her sexuality and her connection to Sarah Churchill. So,
which is, I think, a really clever idea for a film, to take something everyone thinks they know and make it a little more interesting.
Oh yeah, no, like I think that's why it's so brilliant. But again, for this rubric, yeah,
right,
yeah. So now let's talk about the real world impact, like how it reflects the impact that this person had on society and just the overall impact that this film had on everyone.
So, I think one of the big things about Gandhi is, it is a movie that tried to feel accurate, which is something that I think we occasionally overthink about modern day. But due to the fact that they had hundreds of thousands of people in this film, literally hundreds of thousands of people, and the lead role was played by a man who was partially of Indian descent.
Yeah, I believe one of his parents is Indian, one of his parents is British.
Exactly.
Is that
so
it?
His father was of Indian descent, but his father's also born in Kenya. So there are some people who think that he's half Kenyan and half British, and some people say he's half Indian, half British. But to have that actor together with the size and the scope, I think that it really can't be overstated. You know, you have a leading actor of color who is portraying a character of color and doing so in a way that is unabashedly humanist and unabashedly positive.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not controversial to make a movie about Gandhi saying he's awesome in 2021. It's a little controversial to do that in 1982.
Definitely.
And I think that, you know, little pat on the back for you guys, you know? I think it's, you know, and we'll get him more into the Mantlepiece stuff in a second, but it had an impact, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting because you say the same thing about, like, in the 80s, how it was perceived, how nowadays it wouldn't be as controversial. I think the same thing for The Favorite, even more so in the fact that, like, if this had been told in the 80s, no one would have made a movie. No one would have seen a movie about a queen who was a lesbian and was in love with these different ladies and this. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have happened. But I think nowadays that kind of stuff is being more accepted. We're allowed to now point out some of the flaws in some of the systems and like actually see these people as people and not just these royal figures that we feel like we have to idolize all the time. Like, this is not a movie to idolize. This is a movie about a deep character piece about seeing people at their worst, at their breaking point, seeing how the turmoil that they face. And I think that's almost, I wouldn't really say more impactful. It's just a different type of impact because I think now going forward, we might see these more truthful biopics. I know I talked about Jackie earlier. That really plays with the psyche of someone who just went through a loss too. Like, I like how when films can be like, yeah, this person was idolized by so many, but there's also all this other baggage that came with them and their stories. And again, taking historical accuracy away from it, just seeing, you know, someone of such high power just kind of crumble in tears and have this, you know, horrible end of her life where she's just always wondering, does she love me? Do I love her? You know, are they really on my side? Are they trying to kill me? Are they trying to backstab me? They poison each other. The other girls, you know, the shooting scene where they're shooting different things in the air and there's that underlying subtext of like just staring them down while they shoot the birds out of the sky. It's like so harrowing and dense and dark. And I hope more movies, more period pieces really dive into that. I mean, I saw Emma, the Jane Austen novel adaptation, and it was nice, but it was a very, you know, sweet period piece. And it's like, we don't get a lot of period pieces that are dressed up to be all sweet. Like, all the costumes are nice and lavish. And it's, you know, bright, sunny skies and fresh cut grass, but there's all this really deep, passionate, dark subtext. Like, usually it's all about the happy, jolly, oh, we're in London and we're happy and we're drinking tea. This is very much the polar opposite. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. So, which I really, really like. And I hope more films are following this lead in terms of period pieces and making those.
I think that's a really good point, actually. I think especially what you're saying about how when you take a leader who is, you know, someone like a monarch and you actually force someone in the audience to say, this was a person, right? You know?
Yeah. And someone who's not as well known as Gandhi either. Like, Gandhi, it's like, Gandhi's going to make an impact if you read about him in a book. Like, you make him on screen and it's brought to life. But at the same time, Queen Anne, I didn't know who Queen Anne was. I didn't know much about her life. And seeing it, I think that made a bigger impact on Queen Anne than the Gandhi movie made on him, although it was very impactful. I think both made different impacts, but one on an impact of someone who just wasn't impactful in anyone's lives. But again, the impact might be a little less because she is a darker, not as likable person. So
it's true. I think that honestly, that one point that you made, I'm going to give it to you on this one because I think that one point that you made is really wise, where it's like, while Gandhi it's an incredible performance. It's layered, it's this and it's that. Gandhi, he was a flawed person, but like, in the grand scheme of things, he was pretty much always working to stop human suffering. Like, it's hard to get too mad at that guy, you know? But I think that with Queen Anne and Favorite, you really have to deal with, wow, this person made a lot of mistakes. And this person did certain things that I might not do, but they're a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I am witnessing a person with the power of a monarch deal with deep depression.
Yeah.
That can be really affecting and really effective. And
100%.
I also just have to say, Olivia Colman is just a powerhouse. Like, she's just a powerhouse of an actor, truly. Just an incredible performer.
Cool. So I'm getting the first point on my side, but I mean, again, it's still an uphill battle because the next one is the Mantlepiece Award. Krosby, tell me. Actually, why don't I start? Because my hill's a little smaller than yours, I'd say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Oscars this was nominated for, and unfortunately, The Favorite only won 1. But in a year where everyone said Glenn Close, this is going to be her year where she wins the Oscar. She was nominated for The Wife. The Wife, you know, a movie no one saw, but I saw it.
But everyone loved.
Everyone loved the Glenn Close and the idea of her finally winning her Oscar. She's sitting there on Oscar night, and the camera's zooming in on both of them because, you know, my eyes were zooming in on both of them because Olivia Colman was the very dark horse. Even Lady Gaga was up for Star is Born that year, but it was like really between. It was really Glenn Close's to lose. There was no other possibility, and then they read Olivia Colman's name. And you just see everyone, like, even Olivia Colman, she can't believe it. And she's on stage, she's flustered, she's just cannot believe it. And I think that just, even though it only won 1 of 9 awards, Olivia Colman winning that award is one of my favorite wins of all time because of just the pure shock. Because, again, she's not a big name at that point. And I even think now she's still getting her name, but she's not this huge name where everyone's like, oh, it's Olivia Colman, it's her time. It's like, no, it's Glenn Close's time. And even Lady Gaga, her first role, but it was Lady Gaga. She's a superstar. She just won her Best Song award earlier in the night. Melissa McCarthy was up for Can You Ever Forgive Me the same year as well.
That's right.
So, like, even some people were saying, some people were saying maybe she should have won it, but it's Olivia Colman who wins this award. She's frazzled, and she's just has one of the most loving speeches. It's just so amazing. And I think that win was just so exciting. And the film didn't win anything else because, again, I think even though it is now more accepted to have these types of stories, it is still polarizing. And, you know, in a year where, you know, original screenplay went, of course, to Black Klansman, like, of course, because, you know, Spike Lee needed his award and, you know, it well deserved. And Best Picture went, I think, to Green Book that year, which I don't necessarily agree with, but, you know, a lot of people felt connected to that. Best Director, Alfonso Cuarón, another beloved person in the Academy. So, like, it was always up there, but it just never really got those awards. But it's nominated for everything. Best Picture, Director, Actress, 2 awards for Supporting Actress. The whole trio got nominated. Original Screenplay, Cinematography, Costume, Editing, and then Production Design. So it really got pretty much nominations in every category that it could have. And I think that's a testament to the movie. It didn't win them all, though, so I think that does work against it. But I do think that one win is so important. Because she came out of nowhere, dethroned Glenn Close, who still hasn't won. She didn't win for Hillbilly Elegy either. So
I know, right?
It sucks that she hasn't won, but it's also exciting to see the underdog win. So I think just the fact that she came in there where it was supposed to win 0 awards and she wins 1 award, and it's the award that everyone thought was locked up with Glenn Close, I think that's a lot to say. And that's a really nice trophy for this to have. I mean, I'm looking through some of the other just different awards. It was always up for different critics awards. The BAFTAs is really where it cleaned up. That's the British Film Academy.
Yeah, of course.
It got screenplay there. Rachel Weisz won Best Supporting. Olivia Colman did win there. Won Best British Film, Best Production Design, Costume Design, Makeup Design. Like, they really loved it in Britain. So
they loved it.
So maybe that's where
knew who Queen Anne was.
That's where I'll kind of forge my battle for the 100%. Point there is with the BAFTA awards. But tell me about Gandhi.
So, well, Gandhi won 8 Oscars. There are not, you know, I didn't even realize it had won that many. I mean, best picture, best actor in a leading role, obviously. Best director for Richard Attenborough. Best screenplay, Best cinematography, best art direction, best costume design, best film editing. And then it was also nominated for best sound, best music, best makeup.
Wow.
So just Gandhi was nominated for like 11 Oscars.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I have to say, yes, it won all of those and deserved those. On the other hand, I have to say that number one, in the 80s, you're not dealing with as much competition as you are modern day. That's just the way it is. And number two, this movie was, I would argue, it's awards fodder. It is the 80s equivalent of awards fodder. You know, if you were to make a movie today that you wanted to win a lot of awards, you'd make The Favorite. Or you'd make Promising Young Woman. You'd make a movie that was very edgy, that had a lot of themes that people would you know, latch on sounds negative, but would latch on to and would feel strongly about. But if you were in the 80s or the 70s and you wanted that kind of acclaim, you were going to make something epic and huge. And I already made, you know, I already said, you know, like it's, you know, had hundreds of thousands of extras. But truly, it had hundreds of thousands of extras. Like, I can't imagine $100,000 in a room. Like, can you imagine hundreds of thousands of people all over, and you've got to get a camera and you've got to record these people? Like, my God. But I think that really, to me, that really works in favor of the film and works in favor of those awards, because there are times where you say, you know what? They busted their ass to get this to look the way that it does. Like the Lord of the Rings movies. You're like, this took a lot of work.
It's an epic. That's the definition.
They got one. You know, like, I'm glad there was a year.
I'll tell you, Krosby, though, of all the 80s years to have competition, I do think this is some pretty stiff competition. And I mentioned earlier that when I didn't pick Gandhi, it was because I have a little grudge against Gandhi. The reason I have a grudge against Gandhi is because I love E.T., and it beat E.T. for the Oscar.
Okay, see, this is where I'm going to take some umbrage with you, Dylan. E.T. is an incredible film, but I don't know if you can say E.T. deserves Best Picture. Well, I don't know, but you know what? That's also just, I have to say, that's just a me thing. Like, a lot of people, E.T.'s like their movie.
Well, and also, I just think in terms of what we talk about today, I think we talk about E.T. a lot more. And even Tootsie was nominated as well. And it's not obviously going to be a Best Picture winner, but it's one of the best comedies made of that era.
And it all beats Star Wars. Sometimes crazy shit happens.
That's the biggest robbery for me. But yeah, it's...
Can't be talking about it.
No, but I will argue, though, E.T. has had such a great legacy that is why I didn't pick it, was because I was also salty. I was like, oh, I wish E.T. had won. Fair. But for this point and this rubric point, the fact that it beat E.T., Tootsie, The Verdict, you know, these are movies made by Sidney Lumet and Steven Spielberg. The fact that it won, I think, is a testament because it beat some good competition. So I think it works for you. It works against me picking it because I was just being selfish and being like, oh, I'm a Steven Spielberg stan. Boo Gandhi. I'm going E.T. But if you look, I mean, it beat some good movies. I mean, even Ben Kingsley beat Dustin Hoffman, Jack Lemmon, Paul Newman, and Peter O'Toole. Like, that's
a stacked year.
That's just such a stacked year. So I think because of the competition it beat and because of the amount of awards it got, I think it has to go to Gandhi.
I won't argue with you there. It's a hell of a thing to have on your mantle, 8 Oscars.
I gotta go with it. I mean, I like The Favorite. I have one Oscar, just like The Favorite, but 8 Oscars is hard to compete with. If I have 8 of these, I'm the winner. But yeah, you had 8 of them. That there's no, even the impact. Just people talk about Gandhi.
He said, what argument could I make?
Yeah, and again, it's just time. Gandhi's been decades to still be one of the biggest winning Best Picture winners. The Favorite didn't do that, and it's been a few years, and now I feel like The Favorite's not as much in the cycle of talk right now in film verse and film discussion, but who knows? Anyway, let's move on to the last one, see if I can get maybe one more point on the board, or if Krosby's going to get this 4-1. Netflix and Chex Mix rewatchability. I'll just say it outright. The Favorite is a hard film to watch, but I think because it is so layered and it's so rich and so steamy and kind of like, I don't know the right word, but it's like moody. It's like you want to kind of watch it, even though it's dark and twisted. It's like this is a movie I would recommend it to new people who have never seen it and be like, you should watch The Favorite. It's like, it's cool. It's like cool.
Totally. Oh, that's a great way to describe it. That is such a good way. Yeah, it's cool. Like,
Yeah.
that's how you describe it. Yeah.
It's a cool Queen movie. Like, who? And I'm not talking Bohemian Rhapsody Queen. I'm talking like Monarch. Like, it's a cool Monarch royal movie. Like, you want a world leader movie? I'll show you the coolest, darkest, sexiest Favorite. You know, like.
Well, because that's the thing, right? It's also like it's a great like date movie. You know, like The Favorite. Like, that's a cool movie to watch. Gandhi is an incredible movie. Not a cool movie to watch.
It's good for like a history class, but not for, you know, like, let's.
Good for an actor if you're like, man, how does Ben do all this?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really long. It's also, and like you say, where The Favorite is hard to watch, it's hard to watch, and that's kind of the point. You know what I mean? Like, it's a movie that is so honest in the human character at times that it's genuinely disturbing. A little like Parasite, where you watch it and you're just like, oh God, like, oh. People.
It's more intriguing than it is enjoyable.
Exactly. Similar to a lot of Coen Brothers films like Lady Killers and Fargo.
Yeah.
But I think the thing about Gandhi is it's like 3 hours long. You know what I mean? Like Gangs of New York, like some others that I've brought up in the past.
Yeah.
3-hour movies are not very rewatchable because you watch it and then you're like, wow, that was a big chunk of time. And through that chunk of time, I learned all about Gandhi. I don't need to learn about Gandhi again. You know what I mean? Like, I'll watch it again, certainly in like another year when I've forgotten. But like, the facts, the figures, the journey are pretty straightforward. Yeah. And it's really Ben Kingsley's performance that pulls you in and keeps you there for 3 hours.
Yeah, I'd rather go back maybe and watch like clips of Ben Kingsley and his stuff, but I wouldn't want to sit down and watch the whole thing over and over again. Whereas The Favorite, also, you have 3 main characters. So while it is Queen Anne's story, you could watch it in Abigail's lens, and then watch it in Sarah's lens, and then watch it in Queen Anne's lens, or watch it in even the supporting characters, like Nicholas Holt's character's lens. Like, look at it at different characters' points of view, because it is an ensemble piece as much as Olivia Colman's the lead. I mean, all 3 actresses are giving such good work, and even as an actor study, it's not like Ben Kingsley where it's like this one performance you can study. It's like you have so many to study. So I think that also works for its rewatchability for sure.
It's a good point. I think we got to give this one to The Favorite. I mean, come on now.
So there we go, Krosby. So it ends up being a 3-2 fight, but Krosby, you have won this film off. You are the leader of world leaders, world domination. What is the best movie about a world leader? Krosby brought Gandhi to the table. I brought The Favorite. Performance of said leader, Ben Kingsley. Unfortunately, well, fortunately for Krosby, I won't say unfortunately because I'm talking from my perspective, but it's unfortunate that both of them couldn't both win. But Ben Kingsley did take the cake there. Just to be nominated. Historical accuracy, also Gandhi, because we didn't really know for sure the details of Queen Anne's relationship, but that's what makes it special. But not for this film off. And then real world impact, we did go with.
We went with The Favorite, actually.
We went with The Favorite, because
of the influence it had on film at that time.
Yes, and the themes brought up. And the Mantlepiece Award obviously went to Gandhi with 8 awards, and then Netflix and Chex Mix scale went to The Favorite as a more rewatchable film. So if you watch it and then watch it again, let us know what you thought. So there we go. It's deep, it's depressing. Both these movies are pretty deep, but overall a solid film fight. The winner is Gandhi. Congratulations, Krosby. You've won this film off.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor just to be nominated.
Well, speaking of nominated, let's see what our friends nominated over on Instagram. This is our favorite part of
the show.
Oh, obviously, because we get to talk about movies that we didn't even think of. I have not read these yet. I have not read these yet because I didn't want to, because sometimes it's fun to just be surprised on air. So let's see.
Choice. This is the part of the show where we realize there are movies we forgot.
So this is a shorter list. I believe we only have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 responses. So not a ton, but it is what it is. Angel.tramp said, Film Brain says Vice, but in another message said, but my heart says King's Speech. So there was my backup there.
Those are 2 very good choices.
Yep. Vice, another cool new one, another cool one,
No, but, totally.
Webb says Jackie. Wow, look at that.
Hey,
I know she's not a world leader, but like, goddamn, it's a brilliant lesson in dramaturgy and dialect. So there we go, dialect.
Yeah, exactly.
Lily said Vice, absolutely.
Sure.
Chris said The Queen. That's a good film with Helen Mirren. Lily said King's Speech. Ben said Lincoln. He's a Spielberg fan there.
Okay.
This is interesting. J.S. Davis said Billy Joel.
Billy Joel?
Billy Joel. So I don't know if that's a movie that I've never heard of, or if they just maybe
concert you're referencing.
Maybe or just like maybe Billy Joel's a world leader to them, and they're just the supreme.
He leads my heart in song.
And lastly, this is a very interesting choice. I didn't think of this movie, and I've never actually seen this movie, but I know about the conversation. Kelsey says Seth Rogen's The Interview, which is the movie that
that's got a good choice.
Pulled out of theaters because it was apparently going to create nuclear warfare between North Korea.
Exactly. You gotta give a shout out to the people making satire out there. They're the artists putting their necks on the line.
Yeah. A lot of great choices there. I think that poll, it's hard because, world leader movies, like we said, a lot of them are epics. A lot of them are long. A lot of them are like history class movies.
Big in our generation too.
Right. So, but I do think this next topic might get a little bit more talking.
I'm excited.
Crosby, we're in the midst of NBA Finals right now. We're recording this. We're recording
the game right now.
Right. So I won't tell you a score update then. I was just about to say it.
Don't you do it, Dill.
I will not. But we got Bucks Suns. I will not. I didn't even look at the score yet. Who are you going for?
Honestly, I think I got the Suns. I think I got the Suns this year.
Me too, just because I'm a Nets fan, and the Bucks took out the Nets, and then their best player got injured, so I was like, you know what?
Come on, Durant, your foot was on the line.
His foot, oh my god, dude, that was heartbreaking. That was heartbreaking.
Incredible.
If he had just worn shoes that were a little snugger to his foot, it would have been a 3-pointer. They would have won the game, which is just crazy to me. Yeah, wow.
Well, you might have guessed from our conversation.
and because Space Jam 2 is coming out next week as well, we are going to be doing best basketball movie. So, or favorite basketball movie. Because there's,
let's go.
Crosby, there are a lot to choose from. There are some good documentaries. There are good animated movies like Space Jam, like we said. There's some just really good dramas. There's some good comedies about basketball. And then there are movies that have basketball, not maybe at the forefront, but just like as a solid part of it. Like maybe I was thinking that. That's what I was thinking of when I was saying that. I was like, yeah, I mean, it counts.
Pick, so feel free to use it.
I mean, it will be in my top 5 of consideration, that's for sure. I don't know if I'll bring
Krosby. I don't give a fuck.
I might not bring it to the conversation, but you've tempted me now. Maybe I will. If enough people want to see me argue, if enough people want to see me fight High School Musical, comment below. I will do it. If enough people want to see it, I will try to get my film off win for High School Musical because I just lost. I might win. I might lose 2 in a row, but I will go swinging. Krosby, are you excited for basketball? I'm excited to talk about basketball movies and just basketball in general.
I am too. I think it's going to be great. I think we're probably going to go off on tangents about Dr. J, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, and there's one thing that is not really a movie. It is a series. What was it called? The one on ESPN, The Last Dance. With Michael Jordan. Yeah. It was awesome. I loved it, but we're going to keep it to movies only. But that is one I wanted to bring up now. Watch it because it is amazing. It's really good.
That's the Celtics-Lakers documentary. That's also off the table.
Right. It's just going to be fun to talk about basketball movies and then the sport itself. We can talk a little bit about the finals, too. And maybe it'll be over by then. Maybe there will be a sweep. Or maybe we're going to be in, Game 7 going in. We'll have some time to chat basketball. It'll be a lot of fun. Who's your team, Krosby? Your Clippers?
Oh, the Kings, baby. I'm a Sacramento Kings fan, so I'm
That's right. But during this playoff, you've been supporting the Clippers?
Oh, yeah, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, well, that's cool. I'm a Nets fan, so it'll be fun to see. Maybe I'll wear my Nets gear next week.
Wear some Nets gear.
Yeah, we'll battle it out, play some basketball, verbal basketball back and forth.
Basketball. That's what this podcast is.
Right. Krosby, where can they find you on the internet?
They can find me on Instagram at Krosby J. Roza. Where can they find you, Dill?
You can find me on the internet at Twitter and Letterboxd at Dylan_Randazzo. Got a lot of reviews on Letterboxd I've been writing. I've been slacking a little bit. I got to catch up for the past week because I've been watching a ton of shit in preparation for this and other stuff. Dill Pickle Movie Network. Check me out here on this show twice a month. We were going to do first and third Friday, but really it's just a matter of our own schedules and just whenever we can get them done. We will get 2 shows a month for you. That's as basic as we can get it. Marvelous Movie Mondays every Monday. We're talking Loki right now. We're in the midst of Loki, almost at the end of Loki. And you will be getting a Black Widow review as well on Monday. The new MCU film, the first MCU film back in theaters, you'll be getting a review for. Wild. Yeah, crazy. Can't wait to be back. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Krosby and Dylan signing off. Pass you the ball for next week.